Hey guys, Justin back here with J&J Dynasty. Just wanted to talk a few long shots. Everybody knows how things are going with your drafts around the league, and basically the size of the matter is that by the end of the second round, there's not much there, right? I've got a few guys who, on a couple of my rosters that I stashed at the end of last year, I think may be valuable as third round picks, if that's what you're looking for. So that's kind of what I'm trying to get done here today, is to try to make sure that it's available for you. These guys, some options for you. So this is one of my rosters. It was a startup league last year. Pile of more running backs are up above. But I wanted to go over a few of the guys who I have. Now, way out down in the bottom, Darius Leighton. I mean, he's a super stash right now. The Giants are trying to trade him, but I don't think it's going to happen. So we'll just bypass him. Maybe at the end of the next year you pick him up because he's going to be a free agent. So that's what we have with him. Amari Rogers, to me, he's very interesting for a couple reasons. Randall Cobb, Rogers, one of Rogers' favorites. Robert Tonyan is coming back, and he is obviously going to be the touchdown king down by the goal line other than the running backs. So with that being said, who is going to take over Amari Rogers' spot? Right? Who? Is it going to be Christian Watson? I don't think so. Nope. We'll go like this, but maybe that better. Nope, I don't think so. I see Christian Watson as the MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling option. Take the top off the defense, and that way it gives you the underneath routes. So, who is left? Allen Lazard has proven over 5 years that he can't play. All right, so I don't have any hopes for him. Who did they just sign? Who's bounced around from the Chiefs to the Ravens to the Packers? Well, obviously he's not the answer either. He was nothing with the Chiefs, he was nothing with the Raiders, and he's going to be what? Nothing in Green Bay, just like Randall Cobb last year. Randall Cobb did and was very useful for a couple weeks, well, at least 1 week. 1 week when Adams was sick with COVID, right? And he won a lot of people games if they had him on the roster. But the answer to all those questions leaves Amari Rogers. Now, when Rogers was out or Adams was out for that game or two, Amari Rogers was running his routes. Rogers was throwing to Amari Rogers those type passes that he would throw to Adams, right? So I think that now, maybe not in the first couple weeks, maybe by week 4, maybe by week 6, that Amari Rogers is going to take over Devontae Adams' role. So I think that he is a good player to maybe grab at the end of the second round or an early third round, or just go trade for him if he's on a roster somewhere. So that's one guy, one of the last year's rookie wide receivers, and that's what we're going to be concentrating on. Guys who didn't really jump up and do a whole lot this year. But we're going to keep going with that. So as we scroll up the roster here, we're going up, right? So let's go to the bottom here, and let's start with Anthony Schwartz. The bottom of the roster's on the MFL site there, right? Anthony Schwartz is very interesting with Deshaun Watson to me. He, at the very minimum, should be Will Fuller. He probably has better hands than Will Fuller. He's probably a little bit quicker than Will Fuller, a little more slight than Will Fuller, but probably still not as hurt as much as Will Fuller, right? So I think that he is a guy who's going to have a nice step up, and by the end of the year, he's going to have value like Darnell Mooney or Gabriel Davis, either last year coming into the season or at least this year's value, right? Or maybe I should say that the other way around. Maybe this year's value right now, or at least last year's value coming into the season, last year's season, where everybody liked Mooney and Gabriel Davis, and they wanted pieces of them. So I do see that kind of value coming up for Dalton Schultz, or not, for Schwartz, not Schultz. Too many S's right there where I'm looking there. So Curtis Samuel, I mean, he's not last year's guy, but the injury bugs and being Debo light, I don't see much value in him, right? So if we cruise up a little bit further, Dez Fitzpatrick is very interesting to me. Julio Jones, the skeletal remains of Julio Jones. Who have they replaced? They got Treylon Burks, by all reports, monster athlete, right? Great prospect, but he's not a great wide receiver yet in the NFL, right? Who do they have to throw to? Yes, they are a running team. Correct, they are a running team, but they still will have to throw the ball. They still got to get a couple extra men out of the box, right? Who are they going to throw it to? The only guy I can see who is worth anything to be able to take a step up to become a wide receiver 3 or 2 on their roster from their plethora of guys would be Dez Fitzpatrick. He came out and he had a bunch of good numbers. They put high draft capital in him last year, although they waived him, put him on the practice squad, brought him back, right? But he is somebody who's been in the system. He knows Tannehill. He knows what they're doing. From year 1 to year 2 is usually your largest step up for players. So he is somebody I'm going to, if not hang on to on my roster, I'm going to at least keep an eye on them, right? To make sure that if he starts showing that he's going to become the 3 or number 2 guy in Tennessee, that I want a couple shares of him. So that's what I see with that. Finally, going back to Curtis Samuel down here, I also grabbed Dyami Brown. He looked very intriguing at North Carolina. Did not show so much last year with Washington. They did have major quarterback issues. It was his rookie year, right? Yes, they did draft Doxson, but Doxson is a slot. McLaurin is what? A star, but he is on his final. He's got 1 year left on his contract. Who's going to be the number 1 X or Y receiver on the outsides next year? Doxson can stay in the slot, right? Need 2 X and Y outside receivers. So I'm still thinking Dyami Brown is going to be at least 2 or 3 in the offense. And if he takes the big step up, maybe Doxson doesn't this year, but maybe Dyami Brown takes a big step up and Doxson shows flashes, has a high draft capital, and both these guys are your 1 and 2 receivers next year. So that's why I think that they might be very valuable. Now, there's one guy who I was trying to keep last year on many rosters. Couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. Tillin, I don't know, even remember how to say his name properly. Wallace for the Ravens. After the Brown trade, Bateman becoming number 1, I have no faith in Duvernay. At best, he's a slot receiver. Wallace was fantastic in college. He put up big numbers, big dominator numbers, right? So he is one guy who I'm going to be watching and seeing if I can't get him off the waiver wire very early or throwing a late 3rd or 4th round in this year's draft. Normally I wouldn't do something like that, but after 2.5 or 2.6 with the rookies here, it's a dart throw anyways. So you might as well take a dart throw on a guy who has at least the athletic ability, who has the pedigree from previous years, and has a year in the NFL to learn. I almost would rather take a shot in the late 3rd, early 4th round on a guy like Tillin Wallace than, grabbing Bo Nix or no, what's that guy's name? Bo Melton. There we go. Some of these guys, later guys that got a little bit of draft capital, but everybody knows they're stiffs already, So, why not take a shot at a guy who has been in the league, who has learned, who is much more close to taking off than one of those guys. So those are a couple of year 1 wide receivers, or should say year 2021 wide receivers that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. And obviously, I'm keeping an eye on most of them because I do have them on this team. So that's my tips for today. I'll be coming back with some more videos on other things. Maybe break down this team completely. Maybe pull up the whole roster, break it down position group by position group, how I'm thinking on these guys. But those first-year rookie wide receivers, I think that there's a lot of upside. Like I said a couple times, the biggest gain for players usually is between year 1 and year 2. Now, the last couple of years, we've had guys like Chase. We've had guys like Jefferson who have gone out and they've blown up year one. Jefferson year two, same. No sophomore slump, right? But other guys, I mean, I think that CeeDee Lamb had a sophomore slump last year. And this year's going to be very big for him because he's got to prove now that he actually is a number one wide receiver. So there are a lot of question marks about a lot of these guys. Jerry Judy, now he better be a number one because he's going to get quarterback play. He better be a top 20 wide receiver this year, or else everybody's going to be cutting bait with him, right? So, Judy's 2 years ago, and CeeDee Lamb was 2 years ago already. So, yeah, I mean, these guys, by year two, you usually know that if they're good, they're okay, or they have great qualities. So that's why these guys who were drafted last year, I'm going to be keeping an eye on. And these guys are some guys who are a little bit deeper that people probably can pick up on your waiver wires in Dynasty, PPR, right? And maybe even Superflex, but PPR, one quarterback Dynasty, these are guys who definitely should be on your waiver wire or on the bottom of guys' rosters like mine. And you can pick them up for easily a late second, probably a third this year or a future third or fourth. So why not take a chance on them instead of some of these guys who you're drafting or will have to draft in the fourth round? Those are my 2 cents. Hopefully this kind of helps you a little bit, and we can go back to that. So with that, I'll sign off, and good luck in draft Dynasty.